Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of this talk with Luke about the questions that Justin has thrown at us. And the other video went...
I blame Justin for these being too long.
We went quite a while. With the use of drones, creating fantastic shots, will helicopters be a thing of the past?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay.
The biggest problem with drones at the moment is... We have the same problem with helicopters. It's a different problem. In helicopters, it's fuel.
Okay.
In a drone, it's battery life.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can only get the things up for so long, and then
Yes.
they've got to come back down, which means that if it's a big production, or it's a long production, 15 minutes is not very useful.
Yeah.
So, and you want, as a director, you want to have the confidence that something's going to be there for a period of time.
Right.
So you could plan out, okay, at the beginning we're going to use one shot, at the end we're going to use one shot, but really you want to be able to have that flexibility. The producer says, we're going to go to commercial break, okay, stand by chopper for a wide shot, through the wide shot, go music out to commercial break. You want to be able to just quickly make all of that happen. You haven't got time to say, okay, in a minute we're going to go to a commercial break. So get the drone in the air, and then we're waiting for it. We're waiting. The shot's not there yet. You don't want that entering your mind.
Yeah.
You just want to know that it's there. So, okay, in a smaller production, you could plan that out and say, okay, we're just going to use a shot at the beginning, the end, and that's it.
Right.
The rest of the time, we'll use other shots to go to commercial breaks or to break up the action.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other side of it still is that drones aren't quite big enough to carry robust cameras.
Right, yeah.
And also robust linking.
Yeah.
So the actual technology that's required to do that linking is still relatively heavy.
Yes.
So drones will need to get just a bit more powerful.
Yep. And you've got, in a helicopter, you've got an operator on the camera.
Yeah. So you've got a pilot and you've got an operator. Generally, with a drone, you've got the same thing.
Okay.
So you've got one remote control that's the pilot, and then you've got another one that is the camera operator.
Okay.
So you've still
so
got
this is more
people.
technical drones than like the Phantom type one, a hobby type drone.
Yeah, you need to. There are more expensive drones that you can get, which are more rather than $1,000. It might be $8,000 or $16,000. The beauty of a helicopter, first of all, is you're often using a gyro rig, so it takes out any of the vibrations. It's nice and smooth shot. You've got it operates like a normal camera, so you've got endless controls over the color that you're creating, over the black detail, and where your black level is set to. You've got your iris settings. You've got full zoom range from wide to tight. You've got the ability to focus. Yeah. So you've got all of that is manually done by an operator.
Yeah.
Whereas with a drone situation, they have not, to my knowledge, created cameras that give you all of that spectrum of stuff.
Yeah.
So you may be able to shoot a wide shot, but you're not going to be able to do a wide shot that then zooms right into a footy player or something like that.
Yeah, or
so
a motorbike racing.
Yeah, someone running or push bikes, or you haven't got that ability to change. I keep wanting to use there's a phrase called the mise en scène, but it's your field of view.
Right.
It's what is captured by the camera.
Okay.
So the only way you can change it is by moving the drone.
Yeah.
You can't change it by moving the lens.
Okay. Yeah.
And even if you can move the lens, you may not then have control over the iris. So you flash past something really bright, the whole shot shuts down. It's no longer useful.
Yeah.
And you have to have control over all those things.
Yeah.
And for TV production, you have to have control.
Yeah.
For going out and shooting shots of a house for a real estate agent, that's going to be turned into a real estate video, that might be perfectly fine because you can edit around.
Yes.
For a TV show that is more single camera based that they're going to go and edit, they can use drone stuff all they want because they'll just put in a quick flash of that shot, a quick flash of that shot. But for a live production, it's still relatively limited.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So it's probably coming But it's still got a way to go.
Yeah, eventually they will have cameras that you get all that control on.
Yeah.
And again, the next question will be what kind of hand controller will they have to, but they will go together. There'll be a device, and it won't be something, probably you'll have a pilot that's sitting there watching what's going on, and you'll have a cameraman who's sitting with a monitor of... and that's the other side of it too, is when you're in a live broadcast, you want to see what's going to air.
Yes.
So when you're on a little joystick that's got a little monitor there, you can't see what the other cameras are doing.
Yeah.
So you can't complement what's going on.
Right, yep.
And look, that is true for our helicopters currently. You're kind of flying blind.
Yeah.
But you could very quickly put yourself in a situation where you could have a monitor where you can view what's going on. You can see the camera.
Yes.
And you can control it with, may not be even something that you have to hold, but something that sits, and you can change lots of different dials in order to quickly change the iris, get the black levels right. You could have someone technically looking at the pictures on an even better monitor, adjusting colours.
Right,
and that could be done remotely, or that's something that plugs into your little controller.
Yeah.
But they can do it in the truck, watching really good monitors in the dark, and you're watching the framing and the focus.
Yeah.
And but all of those things, technically the pictures that come out would be all matched and the same, and that's what we do in broadcast.
Yeah, right. Yep. So, interesting. So, there will be changes, just like everything.
It's just going to take time.
Yeah.
I do think eventually drones will be the way forward. The other problem is that drones, I haven't heard of them in a little while, but they do tend to drop out of the sky. So, and helicopters don't have that. I mean, yes, helicopters can crash. But when you're above people, there is not that fear that a helicopter suddenly going to... It doesn't happen so often, whereas with drones...
Yeah.
And I guess because you have got a pilot in a helicopter that is
Watching
fearing for his own life.
Yeah.
He's going to bring that thing down safely to protect others and himself.
Yeah.
So you've got a human mind behind that. A drone is still remote controlled, and I guess there's that fear that it could have a mind of its own, or that someone else could control it. And I've heard stories where people have been using drones and all of a sudden, like they'll be on the beach shooting shots of surfers, and all of a sudden their drone just heads out to sea, never to be seen again. So you lose your camera and your drone, and then next thing you know, the president's car drives past.
Yeah.
And it's like, so they've just taken over control of everything, and they've just gone, you're out of here.
Yeah.
And so there's still that fear that someone else could overtake the control that you have.
Right. Interesting.
And even GPS signals, they can have GPS tracking, so they can say, okay, go from this point to this point to this point to this point. But I still don't think GPS tracking is so secure that it couldn't miss one point of that. Right. And then if it gets confused, how does it then fix it up?
And where it is.
There's so many questions that are iffy in that add an element of danger if you're above people's heads. And you just cannot have a drone above people with the risk of it falling down.
Yeah. Do sporting events suffer from blackouts like the early days in RF?
That kind of opens up a whole gamut of issues.
Right.
I think the question is trying to say RF issues in the past where you might have one camera drop out, not necessarily the whole production drop out.
Right.
If you're talking about the whole production, we still suffer the same problems, but...
And there could be multiple reasons why the program would drop out.
Yeah, but the satellite generally... I haven't seen a satellite drop out in a long time.
Okay.
So it would only be if there's really heavy weather that would happen.
Okay, yep.
If that's the question. If the question is more locally related to single cameras dropping out, that technology has got a lot better and a lot stronger than it used to be.
Okay.
In the past, you used to have a direct microwave link to a dish that was then connected to the truck, and you would have someone holding that and pointing that link, and that link was connected directly to the camera.
Right.
Would all have batteries. A guy with a big backpack on with lots of technology and batteries sitting in there, and he would point it. One person's pointing the camera, and he'd be watching him, and he'd be making sure the microwave link is constantly there. You'd have the same thing in Formula One cars, where you'd have a helicopter above the race. The cars are shooting a link up to the helicopter, which then gets bounced back down to a microwave on the truck. And so all the different cameras would be linked that way. Right. And in those days, they probably wouldn't have had cameras on all of the cars. It just would have been a few select cars.
Yes.
And that was the problem when they would go under a bridge, you'd lose the signal because there's not that direct line of sight.
Okay.
These days, they're able to create more of a field where they can receive pictures that are able to kind of, it's not about having a direct line of sight, it kind of is just where, if it's in that area. So it's a much broader area that they can send out their signals. So no longer do we have issues with Formula One cars going under bridges and losing picture. Yep. It's able to maintain the picture throughout. Right. You don't necessarily have to have a chopper in the air. Yep. For say a cycling race, you can create these fields of views and fields of radio receiving. Okay. And a motorbike with a camera on it can, as long as it maintains that area, as long as it's within that area, you'll get pictures from the camera. It doesn't have to be shooting a direct beam at a specific spot. Yeah. It just has to be within that area.
So the change in the way that the signal is received has cut out the amount of black spots that we used to see in live events especially.
Yeah, it means that you've got a lot stronger and a safer signal for a lot longer. And the next area that we'll be going to with this in the future will be not even needing to set up a specific RF area. You'll be able to just use mobile phone technology. Okay. So as long as you've got internet coverage via your mobile phone, 4G coverage in an area, you'll be able to use that in order to, via the internet, get your camera signals.
Okay, so like when the F1 cars go through the tunnel at Monaco,
yes,
what's happening there?
Well, they would have antennas set up throughout the tunnel, and they would have them set up all around the course so that basically that camera can receive, the picture from that camera can be received at any point around that course. Okay. And they may have, I don't think for Formula One they would have this. I know for when I do cycling, we have 2 zones. Right. So each of the cameras are picked up. So we have 2 motorbike cameras. But in the Vision Mixer, we have 4 sources for each, so 2 for each of the zones. So Motorbike 1 and Motorbike 2 in Zone A, and Motorbike 1 and Motorbike 2 in Zone B. Right. And they're actually 2 or 4 separate sources that go into our mixer. So we have to make sure if they're travelling between that we cut away from one source, we go to a different camera, and then we would then pick up the same camera on the B source in the new location. Okay. So we have to do that thinking because there's actually two separate zones. Yeah. I think for Formula One they may have 2 separate zones. Right. But it doesn't seem to be that way. Right. The way they cut it. Okay. But I mean, no, you don't ever. And again, this is part of what we were talking about in earlier or in the earlier video. Yeah. Is you never want to sit on one. You only sit on that one shot while that shot is still interesting. Right. The viewer will get bored very quickly. If you just went around the whole track or with one car, you'd be like, okay. So a director's never going to do that. So they could be cutting different zones and we would never know. Right. But my feeling is from the shots that we have seen, it feels like it probably is like one zone for Monaco.
Yeah, okay. And you never see a blackout, basically.
No longer. No. Not for Formula One.
Thanks for watching this series of interviews between Luke and me about all things technology in regard to cameras, TV and YouTube. Stay tuned for more.